our MC at the Childhood Cancer Run Walk, and all of those that were there, I think everyone agreed did an awesome job. Carter in his life he's done a lot of things in his life and had to endure a lot of things, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself and then also talk about an organization that he's involved with. So, Carter. I know.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate you guys having me here as a guest. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the Optimists. I've learned a little bit about the Optimists and some of the things that they are really involved with, helping youth and kids. I got to meet Steve Medlock, who came on as a guest for the radio show that I do, and I found out that Steve Medlock's dad helped start the baseball league that I played in, and that has a lot to do with the Optimists support a lot of athletic events. And I think sports is an essential part of what helps kids develop these days, because there's a lot to be said for education and what they can learn in the classroom, but there's a lot to also be said for kids and what they can learn to interact and work with each other, and how to win, how to lose, and how to strive to be their best and work hard. So that's where I come from and what I really espouse myself based on kind of what I went through. So I guess kind of the way I figured we would do this today, I'll talk a little bit about, give kind of an introduction about where I came from, what I went through and overcame, and I'll show you a couple slides about what I went through. What's scrolling on the screen up there right now, this is an event where I spoke to the Boys and Girls Club here in St. Charles, and they've had me there a few times, but I get to talk to these kids, and you know, a lot of people think the Cardinal Cowboy thing is just kind of a fun, entertaining thing, and that's really what it started out as. But these kids really think it's kind of exciting, so it was neat for me to be able to enlighten some of these kids and give them something to smile about, you know. And they all came up real excited to get a picture taken with me, my goofy baseball uniform that I had a lot of fun with. But I'll go back and talk a little bit about what I went through. I was born and raised in St. Louis. Both of my parents are involved in education. My dad's a college admissions counselor. He's going to be he's 48 years as a college admissions counselor now at Central Methodist University. So he's almost at a half-century mark. He's been doing it forever, and he loves helping kids that a lot of times don't believe in themselves and don't think they have the opportunity to go to college, take that opportunity to go to school and get a college education. My mom has been a high school drama teacher for almost as long. She taught a guy from St. Louis, some of you may have heard, by the name of John Goodman. And the story is that John was up for the lead for Bye Bye Birdie. He couldn't sing at all, though, and since my mom was the director, she decided who got it, even if the music director said he shouldn't get it because he couldn't sing, but he got it, and then the rest was history. Now you've seen John, he's in all kinds of movies. So he owes it all to my mom.
Still can't sing.
He still can't sing. But that's kind of the background I come up from, and a big part of my life was baseball. And my dad had me out, and I really believe I don't have any particular special ability other than I was willing to go out there and try and do it and work hard at it. And I just think, a lot of times kids these days, they're kind of inhibited. They don't believe in themselves. They may not have somebody pushing them as often to help inspire some of that. And that's what I really like to help share with kids, because I was fortunate to have parents that did that for me. Then I got to where I was going to go off and play baseball in my dad's school. They saw some ability in me, and there was a lot of the coaches there that thought there was a good chance I might get drafted. And I was really a pretty good baseball player. So I transferred to my dad's school. Central Methodist is the same school that my parents met at, and started to go to school there. They said, why don't you play on the soccer team too? I played on the state second place championship team 2 years in a row for Lutheran South. We lost to Aquinas Mercy. A lot of people know Aquinas Mercy. We beat DeShane in the semifinals, where I scored a sudden death overtime goal. I know there's a lot of DeShane people probably know in the area. But went on to play soccer there, and then my parents had met at the school and been married now for almost 48 years now, right now, and decided they were going to come down for the college homecoming football game, which is a big event for a small school like Central Methodist. And everybody comes. We had already a soccer game earlier that day. They went into overtime, and the timing. It said that the timing was set for what happened after that, because when the kids had the opportunity to score a goal, it would end the game, and that didn't happen. So my parents came. Said, we drove all the way down here to see you. How you doing? I pretty much said, hey, great. Thanks for coming down. 2.5-hour drive. I'm going back to St. Louis to meet my girlfriend, who was driving in from Bradley. And going to St. Louis. So thanks for coming down. We'll see you. I turned around, got in the car, proceeded to go on my way back to St. Louis. Went to the Golden Corral. I still remember I was 18 when this accident. I was 19 when this accident happened. So it was about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm actually 38 now, so it was 19 years after when I was 19. And so, got in the car, headed home. Decided, at that point we're taking a nap in the back seat while Jimmy continues to drive. Jimmy Barnes was our driver. And then I don't remember anything about what happened, but as is obvious to what, the criminal reports and everything, a drunk driver was coming down Highway 109 back out in Eureka, because we were going to go to Eureka High School soccer game, where Jimmy Weatherly had graduated the year before. And the drunk driver started spinning at us and hit us on head-to-head on his side of his truck. Smashed head into our car and then flipped over us and went down into the ravine. At the scene of the accident, Jimmy was in really bad shape, our driver. If he was going to survive, he was going to be blind because his jaw went back into the back of his brain. Jimmy Weatherly was coherent, was talking. He was the front right passenger. I was the back left passenger, and then Sean Soul was the back right passenger. Sean was really lucky, if you can say such, as he involved such an accident. And nothing too dramatic there, but I was continuing to have conversation with the paramedics and everybody that was at the scene, and it appeared that I was okay. And then I started to have seizures. And so as soon as I started having seizures, they pulled the drunk driver who hit us, who later they did a blood alcohol test on him. He blew like 0.21. Anything he knows about legal alcohol, at the time of 0.10 was the legal limit, so he was more than 2 times the legal limit. They pulled him out of the ambulance, put me in, and they said, had I not made that first trip to the hospital, because I was seemingly okay, and then I started having seizures, which apparently are very painful, and every muscle in your body tightens up repeatedly over and over. Thank God for a built-in defense mechanism we have, and that locked all of that out of my memory. I don't remember any of that. But they put me into the ambulance where they proceeded to take me to the hospital, and they shot me up with a drug called Dilantin. And many people probably heard of Dilantin, but Dilantin will stop seizures immediately, but you can't be taken off of Dilantin immediately. You have to be weaned off it over months so you can go back into seizure. And there are times, even when I'm in bed or just talking with friends, I'll do this little thing like this, and you're like, what's wrong? But I think that's a repercussion of the accident. But then I was taken to the hospital where they essentially told my parents, they called my parents, said, hey, something's happened, come back to St. Louis, your son is in the hospital. Jimmy Barnes then proceeded to go into a coma and passed away. It never used to bother me. I used to be able to talk about it more, but as you really understand the severity. I was then in a coma, and they told my parents that I had less than 50-50 odds to live or die. Those aren't good odds, right? Less than 50-50 odds to walk again, or less than 50-50 odds to function again? No, less than 50-50 odds to live or die. But I had my arms in the restraints, had my arms strapped down, a breathing apparatus down my throat. Got my arms out of the restraints, pulled the breathing apparatus out of my throat, and they proceeded to tell my parents, wow, we think he's going to make it. Good indication, right? But after that, it was still told to my parents and to my face at a number of different meetings we had with different doctors and neuropsychologists and psychiatrists and all kinds of stuff that I had to go to as a sophomore in high school, about to start a new career and potentially get drafted as a baseball player. And I'll never forget the time when my dad proceeded to pull me out of one of the meetings where one of the doctors said, look, Carter may never be able to achieve or reach his goals. You might just have to kind of just take care of him for the rest of his life. And my dad's a pretty smart guy, too. He's finished his PhD coursework. He did all the dissertation. He didn't have a dissertation. He's a smart guy, and he says, listen, you're not talking to my son like that. This doctor should be locked up. That's what my dad would say. And he told me. So proceeded from that point forward to continue what he had already started with me as a child, which was, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. There are setbacks in anyone's life, right? And anybody's going to have to overcome something, and that's what I talk to kids about. Whether you go through a divorce, you go through a difficult situation with a friend or a colleague or a student, a coworker, everybody's going to go through some type of difficult situation. It's no matter how you respond to that situation, right? The famous quote I recall from my dad still to this day, until my dad's been very instrumental in my life, is it related to baseball. It's not the error that kills you. It's not the error that causes you to lose the game, right? It's how you respond to that error. Do you commit another error? Do you completely flop and lay down and let the team run you over? Or do you bounce back and say, hey, it's one error. It's one problem. It's one mistake. It's one thing that didn't go right. And so now I just need to bounce back and say, hey, as a matter of fact, I learned from that. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have been able to realize what went wrong there, so to keep those kinds of things, how to better react to those types of things in the future. So that's where I progressed through it. That's kind of the speech that I give to the kids. So if you don't mind, I'll show you guys a couple pictures, give you a little bit of the impact, share with you guys what I went through, because many of you guys, obviously we have some very intelligent people who've been through a lot of experiences in their lives, but hopefully you guys can help me communicate my message to other kids and share my story, if nothing else. This is at the Boys and Girls Club. Here is my little website. I put this presentation to show to people, but I've been involved with all kinds of fun stuff there. I was in St. Louis Magazine, I've been photo shoot for the best fans in St. Louis. I've been on the radio. I was telling a story about how I was called into one of the radio stations, and they had me on for an interview. And they said, so, I said, yeah, actually one time, a lot of times I carry the uniform in my car, and I'll change in the parking lot, and then go to the game. And they said, kind of like Clark Kent? I was like, yes, only I'm a little more powerful and strong. So, we got to get my connection.
Find the phone.
That's right. So, that is kind of what I talk about with families or kids about what I went through. And my goal is to share the message with other kids about, hey, look, like I said, horrible things go on in everyday life. We know how many wars that we're fighting around the world right now and different things that, for whatever reason, we've been challenged with. Go back up there. Finally, my connection time down. Here is, this is the logo. Buddy of mine, you see how much it looks like me. Buddy of mine, he told me, he said, Carter, supposedly I'm one of the best artists that have come through St. Louis University, according to my art teacher at SLU. And so I said, well, Steve, I've helped you with a couple things. Can you draw me up a logo, make it appear as you know, kind of fun, and model a little bit after me. I didn't ever tell him to do that, but with that, he put the big muscles, and you see it's got the cowboy hat, and you can't see the whole logo there, but around the top and side of it says Cardinal Cowboy. Looks like my little internet connection thing. I'm going to switch over here. So I got always have a backup plan, right? So that's what I talk about. And the other thing I'd like to ask anybody is if anybody has any questions, I'll answer anything really about what I went through, what I kind of experienced, and anything I can help to paint the picture for somebody else so they can talk.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
How many volunteer hours do you put in a week or a month's time? You do a lot of volunteer time, I know.
Yeah, if you pay attention to my Facebook, which is myself, and I talk about Giddy Up or the Cardinal Cowboy and my website and stuff, but it's almost every weekend there's something I can do, sometimes 2 or 3 things in a weekend. And it's really because I enjoy it. You know, I don't get paid for any stuff that I do. I do get donations sometimes that I give to the foundations that I help support. But I think to me that's where I have the opportunity to give back a little bit. And you know, if I had the opportunity to make a living at this and not have to worry about trying to survive and pay my bills, that's what I would do. So my real goal in life is to work as hard as I possibly can at what I do. And by day, I'm an internet marketing guy. I work for a small brewery a lot of people have probably heard of. They used to be based in St. Louis, called Anheuser-Busch. But for 10 years, I worked for them, had a pretty cush job, was doing real well. I finished college and grad school, unbeknownst to my doctor. She said that would probably never